Hey there, sleep-deprived history buff. Let's get one thing straight. You're no battle-hardened warrior. Not truly. You're not the type who charges into no man's land with steel between your teeth or gets immortalized on some faded propaganda poster. No, you're just a kid. Or at least you were until His Majesty's government decided your talent for inhaling coal dust made you prime candidate for burrowing beneath French soil. Now, instead of hacking at rock for some mine foreman, you'll be carving through clay for some general who couldn't pick you out of a lineup. You won't see open battlefields or die with honor. You'll slither on your belly through passages barely wider than your shoulders, in darkness, in silence, waiting for the very ground to turn against you. Before we go underground, do me a small favor. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is there. I always find it fascinating to see where in the world these stories resonate. And if you'd like early access to more grim historical tales, ad-free episodes, or just want to support the show, check the Patreon link below. But for now, lean back, get comfortable. Let's begin. You came into this world with cold dust in your lungs and a pickaxe waiting in your future. Not literally, of course, but close enough. In your village, boys learn to swing mining tools before they're tall enough to properly duck in the shafts. The mine whistle governed life more than church bells, outlasted any schoolhouse, and made more demands than the Almighty himself. You've spent most of your existence hunched underground, wrestling with stubborn black earth that fights every shovel thrust. You've measured time in shifts and injuries, not clocks or calendars. No uniforms, no medals, no patriotic speeches, just the constant ache in your back and the knowledge that your father did the same until his lungs gave out like rusted machinery. So when war breaks out, you're less than eager. Not because you're cowardly, though you'll be called that soon enough, but because you're exhausted down to your bones, and because you've seen what happens to men who buy into promises too big for their britches. Still, even you can't ignore the posters forever. They're plastered everywhere. Shop windows, telegraph poles, pub walls. Kitchener's mustachioed face and pointing finger demanding your attention. Your country needs you. Hard to ignore when it's staring at you mid-pint. The first wave of lads marches off early. Clerks, farmhands, university boys in their neat caps. They leave to cheers, bright-eyed and straight-backed, dreaming of cavalry charges and medals on their chests. You stay behind. Someone's got to keep the furnaces burning and the lights on. The mines don't dig themselves, and this war needs coal almost as much as it needs cannon fodder. For a while, being underground becomes its own kind of exemption. You keep your head down, both literally and figuratively, but it doesn't last. The army comes calling one frostbitten morning in 1915, not with rifles or threats, but with something far more dangerous, flattery. They've started a new kind of unit, they say. One for skilled men, practical men. Men who know how to swing a pick in silence and don't mind tight spaces. You lads live half your lives underground already. The recruiting officer chuckles like it's the best joke he's ever told. Might as well do it for king and country. You don't laugh, but you don't say no either. They call it the tunneling companies, part of the Royal Engineers. Not quite infantry, not quite artillery, something in between and underneath. Technically, you're a sapper now. Sounds almost dignified, professional even, like you might build bridges or defuse bombs while peering through wire-rimmed spectacles with a pipe clenched in your teeth. In reality, you'll be digging holes just like before, only now the holes might explode, collapse, or contain Germans. You sign your name in a drafty hall beneath the king's portrait. The ink freezes halfway through your surname. The clerk tells you not to worry. He's seen worse signatures. We're not after penmanship, son. We're after grit. You're not sure if that's meant to comfort you, but it gets you a handshake, a stamp, and a voucher for new boots. Training is brief. No need to teach a miner how to dig. What they do teach you is how to distinguish British timbers from German ones by the sound they make under stress, how to pack explosives that'll collapse a tunnel without killing your own men, and how to fight in a passage too narrow to swing a proper shovel. The demonstrations are brutal. One instructor tells you the key to surviving underground is learning not to breathe too much. Everyone laughs. He doesn't. You're assigned a number, a company, and a cap badge shaped like a flaming grenade. supposedly representing the core of Royal Engineers. To you, it looks more like something that might roll under your bunk and kill you in your sleep. Still, it shines nicely, and your mother, when she sees it before you ship out, will pretend it means something more than imminent danger. The uniform it's pinned to doesn't fit, too tight in the shoulders, baggy at the knees, and already reeking of mildew. But it's a uniform, and that matters. Makes you official now. A soldier. An imperial tool. You half expect someone to start reciting poetry. Instead, you're handed a canvas duffel with your name stenciled on it, and told to report to Southampton by dawn. Some private shoves a rail ticket at you like he's doing you a favor and says, "Best get some rest." The lads out there will be glad for someone who knows which end of a pickaxe to hold. You don't sleep much that night. Not from nerves, though you've got those, but because your body remembers what digging means and already dreads it. You lie awake thinking of the mine shafts back home, the stench of old sweat and fresh coal, the sound of stones splitting under iron, how your lantern cast shadows that stretched like grasping fingers across the walls. You wonder how different it can really be. Next morning you wait on the platform with 50 other men just like you, scuffed boots, crooked spines, the quiet resignation of people who know what kind of silence lives underground. No bravado here, no songs, just the occasional cough and clink of buckles. The officer calls names like he's taking attendance at a school nobody wants to graduate from. Yours comes midway. You answer with a nod. As the train pulls away, you watch your town shrink into smoke and frost. No band plays. Nobody waves. The war's already taken too many sons for anyone to fuss over one more. You're not a hero yet, just another body with a shovel and a one-way ticket to France. You tell yourself it won't be worse than mining. That trenches are shallow things. That the army might actually feed you more regularly than the pit boss ever did. But even as you think it, you know it's a lie. Because at least in the mines, the earth didn't hate you back. And down in the pits, nobody was digging toward you with explosives. You shift in your seat, the scratchy wool of your uniform catching at your neck, and glance at the man beside you. He's older, face carved like stone, already asleep. You envy that. You close your eyes and try not to imagine what waits beneath the mud. It doesn't work. You dream anyway. Next stop, the front. And far below it, your new home. You arrive at the Western Front during a rainstorm that might have been going for weeks or months. Impossible to tell. The train stops short of any proper station, and from there it's a bone-jarring truck ride through miles of mud and shattered roads, past artillery parks, and endless lines of hollow-eyed men marching the other way with bandaged limbs and thousand-yard stares. Flanders greets you with unrelenting flatness, gray, wet, and devoid of life. You didn't expect much from a war zone, but even your low expectations aren't met. The trees stand as splintered matchsticks. Fields have turned to primordial soup. The air carries a cocktail of manure, petrol, and something sour you can't identify. Clouds hang oppressively low, as if the sky itself can't be bothered to lift its head. An eerie quiet dominates, not the comforting kind, but the sort that makes your spine itch. Somewhere in the distance, a shell detonates with the finality of God slamming a door. They dump you near what initially looks like a ditch behind a low ridge. Only when you're closer do you realize it's a trench, the earth appearing to have simply given up and split open. A crude wooden ladder slants into the abyss, and a whistle-wearing officer waves you down without bothering to look up from his cigarette. You descend, boots slipping on rain-slicked rungs, entering a world where everything exists in shades of brown, dampness, and suffocating proximity. The stench hits first, not just mud or wet wool, but the accumulated rot of months, sweat, blood, stale rations, and something organic you deliberately avoid naming. The trench walls weep moisture. Duckboards squelch treacherously underfoot. Rats scurry with impunity, fat, bold creatures. One pauses to assess you, its beady eyes calculating your potential as future carrion. You try not to take it personally. Men shuffle past with vacant expressions, shouldering rifles. Tin hats ask you. Most ignore you. Those who do look your way seem vaguely disappointed, as if hoping for someone taller, cleaner, or more thoroughly dead inside. A few wear badges like yours, Royal Engineers, but most are infantry destined for shooting and being shot at. Your nod to a passing lance corporal goes unreturned. Your escort, a private who's spoken maybe 10 words since the train station, grunts something about second company this way and leads you down a side trench barely wide enough for 2 men to pass. The walls are shored up with sandbags and repurposed doors. Overhead, makeshift roofs of duckboards and sheet metal suggest someone once tried to make this livable. The attempt failed spectacularly. Occasional rifle fire pops in the distance, sometimes closer. A bullet cracks overhead, and you instinctively duck, nearly tripping over telephone wires strung ankle-high through the mud. The private doesn't flinch. Sniper, he mutters. Likes to aim high. You pass a dugout door bearing the scratched inscription Death or Glory hanging by one hinge. Further along, a latrine that's essentially a hole in the duckboards with a half-hearted curtain. A snoring soldier with a rat chewing his bootlaces. The surrealism intensifies with every step. You expected war to be loud, perhaps even heroic. This is neither, just a waterlogged queue of misery where men shuffle between tasks like figures in a painting left out in the rain. Artillery rumbles intermittently, distant thumps and cracks that vibrate through the earth more than the air. Someone screams briefly before the sound gets swallowed by the mud. Nobody runs to help. After navigating more duckboard corridors and passing a rusted cart full of pickaxes, your guide stops outside a dugout wedged into the trench wall. "This is him," he announces, then leaves without waiting for acknowledgement. Inside, a single oil lamp flickers beside a folding map table. The air feels thicker here, more confined. A mud-caked officer in a greatcoat scrapes something from under his nails with a penknife. He doesn't look up when you enter. You stand awkwardly, unsure whether to speak. After an eternity, he grunts. "New rat, are you?" Assuming he means you. "Yes, sir." Though you're not entirely convinced of his rank, his insignia are barely visible beneath the grime. He finally looks up, revealing eyes red-rimmed and yellowed like old parchment. His appraisal is swift and unimpressed. "Not the worst I've seen. Hope you brought your own boots. The issued ones don't last a week down there." You nod, though you didn't. Better to pretend. He tosses you a canvas satchel. Ear trumpet, chalk, carbide lamp, and flask. Don't lose any of it. And don't drink the lamp water. Last lad who did hasn't stopped shaking. You inspect the contents. The reek of grease and damp wool assaults your nose. The flask rattles ominously. "I'm Sergeant Flanagan. You don't call me sir. You don't salute. And if you hear knocking in the walls, you don't shout. You get me or whoever's breathing nearest. That's how we do it." "Understood." You nod again, realizing nods will take you further here than questions. He stands with audible joint creaks, shorter than expected, built like a barrel that learned to walk. Grabbing a lantern, he checks the fuel and jerks his chin toward a tunnel entrance cut into the trench wall behind him, barely more than a timber-reinforced hole swallowing darkness. Cold, damp air exhales from it, carrying scents of wet earth and something metallic. "Come on then," he says. "No point waiting till you're clean and rested. You won't be either again for the duration." You follow wordlessly. He stoops to enter the tunnel. You mimic his hunched posture, stepping off the trench floor into something deeper, more ancient. Surface sounds vanish instantly. No shouting, no gunfire, just water dripping and earth shifting overhead. Bent double in the narrow shaft, your boots sink into clay. His lantern makes ghosts of your shadows along the walls. You duck instinctively at nothing, thinking of infantrymen crawling through shell fire above, bayonets fixed, letters from home tucked in breast pockets. You've seen the posters, heard the songs, but none of it matters now. Your war isn't up there in the light. Your war is down here in the dark, and it's only just beginning. Your first 20 minutes underground with Sergeant Flanagan teach you more about fear than any mining accident ever could. Just long enough for your ears to pop from pressure changes, to taste damp clay coating your tongue, to understand these tunnels weren't made for living things. You don't dig, you don't speak, just follow his hunched silhouette through the suffocating darkness, learning the language of creaking timbers and shifting earth. He shows you listening posts where men press trumpet-like devices against clay walls, their faces screwed in concentration. Points out timber braces you'll pray don't give way, each groan sounding like an old man's dying breath. Demonstrates how to wedge a support beam at the exact angle to delay collapse. Here, knocking in the walls, you don't shout. He repeats, spitting a wad of phlegm that disappears into the gloom. That's how lads get disappeared. When he turns back without ceremony, you realize this wasn't training, just a predator showing his cub where the pack hunts. That night, you sleep in a dugout barely wider than a coffin, your skull filled with dripping water and distant footsteps. No dreams come, just the sensation of clay pressing behind your eyelids, as if the earth's already claiming you. Morning arrives without sunlight, just a subtle shift in the damp air's quality and the muffled tromping of boots overhead. Flanagan thrusts a thumb toward the shaft mouth. You're with Doyle today. Try not to make him kill you. Then he's gone, swallowed by the trench maze, leaving you blinking at the darkness. Doyle waits just inside the entrance, crouched on an overturned crate, sucking an unlit pipe. He doesn't look up as you approach. Hope you ate, he mutters around the stem. Won't see food or daylight for a spell. You offer your name. He doesn't reciprocate, just shoulders a burlap sack of tools and begins crawling into the tunnel's gullet without another word. Within 10 paces, the entrance's light vanishes completely. Your world shrinks to the space between your back and the ceiling, a passage too low to stand, too narrow to kneel properly. You quickly learn the difference between crawling and slithering. Doyle moves with practiced ease, his boots disappearing around bends while you're left staring at mud inches from your face, trying not to calculate the weight overhead. The walls feel alive, slick and claustrophobic, occasionally groaning as timber braces protest their burden. Your breath fogs in the stale cold. Within minutes, your gloves become caked in clay that smells of ancient water and tarnished pennies. When you scrape your shoulder on a splintered board, the curse dies in your throat. Doyle glances back sharply. You seal your lips. Eventually, the shaft widens enough to squat beside him. He gestures for the hand auger from the sack. You comply, unsure what comes next. He jams it into the clay wall and begins twisting slowly, ear pressed to the handle. After several turns, he stops, presses his ear directly to the shaft wall, and becomes statue still. You mimic him, though unsure what you're listening for. Nothing yet, he finally murmurs. Good. Means we're still alone. You nod like you understand. You don't. He begins digging in earnest with pick and short-handled shovel, tools too small for proper mining, adapted for silence. Each strike is measured, deliberate. No wild swings, just careful scraping and the occasional dull clunk when iron meets stone. Eventually, he tosses you the shovel. Shift what I pull. Quiet-like. No scraping walls. No clanging metal. Sound travels down here. Louder than you'd think. Louder than you want. You learn quickly. Not the weight. That's manageable. But the control. You're accustomed to full pickaxe swings, working fast, breathing hard. Here, speed is death. Every movement must be slow, silent, performed in a space barely wider than a coffin. Soon the air turns foul. The shaft breathes poorly, each exhale hotter and damper than the last. Your shirt clings. Your scalp itches. Breathing through your mouth makes you gag. Clay, mold, and something metallic coating your tongue. Doyle hears you retch. Don't. You'll suck in dust. He tells you about a man who coughed this close to enemy lines. Sound carried. Germans heard. They dug faster, came through the wall with knives. We buried what was left. He says it conversationally. Mostly boots. Time loses meaning underground. No hours, just muscle fatigue and thinning lamp oil. You shovel until your arms tremble, then shovel more. The clay never ends. Doyle speaks only when necessary, always in whispers. You start mirroring him unconsciously. Loud noises feel obscene here, like shouting in a cathedral. He shows you how to wedge supports without splitting them, how to reinforce collapsing edges, how to read dust patterns in lamplight to predict cave-ins. You'll feel it before you hear it, he says. In your teeth, like chewing gravel. Then, faint tapping in the clay. You freeze. So does Doyle. ears pressed to the wall. Tree roots maybe, he finally says. Or they're listening back. He shrugs. Either way, nothing to be done. Keep digging. Buy withdrawal time. Your knees have numbed and your fingers won't uncurl. You shuffle backward like a crab, dragging tools, every muscle screaming. Doyle moves ahead silently, his silhouette bobbing in the dying lamplight like a ghost on a tether. Emerging into the trench feels like resurrection. The air seems foreign, too bright, too loud. Even the overcast sky stings. Your ears ring from pressure changes. Hands shake too badly to hold the tea someone offers. You lean against the trench wall, lightheaded and filthy, sweat stinging your eyes. Doyle sits beside you, finally lighting his pipe. The tobacco smells of peat and old books. Not bad for first dig, he says, exhaling smoke. You didn't scream. That's more than some manage. Then he closes his eyes, leaning back like a commuter between train stops. You don't respond, still remembering how to breathe like a human. Your second full day underground marks the first that truly counts. Doyle wastes no time on warnings, just points to a section of tunnel wall ahead of the timber frame. There. Scrape it clean, slow and steady. Hear anything not us, stop. Then he drops to one knee and begins sorting tools with the quiet precision of a man rolling cigarettes at a funeral. You take position beside him, already sweating though the air is frigid. The tunnel's atmosphere doesn't circulate, just thickens with the stench of bodies, stale breath, and wet earth. Pressing your palm to the wall, fingers sinking slightly into yielding clay, you begin digging. Not like a miner, no forceful swings, just careful scraping, slicing, scooping. Each strike risks collapse. Each sound might betray your position to German ears listening through 100 feet of soil. Doyle had said it plainly yesterday. They're digging toward us same as we're digging toward them. Don't give them reason to know where you are. So you keep the pick's strikes muffled, tapping until clay flakes loose, then sliding it gently into sacks. The work isn't physically crushing. It's the unnatural slowness that wears you down. The stillness. The constant awareness that every sound could be your last. Knees pressed into slick earth, back permanently hunched. You focus on a 3-foot stretch of mud that becomes your entire world. Doyle occasionally reaches past to adjust supports or wedge braces, never speaking unless necessary. You appreciate this more than expected. The lamp casts monstrous shadows along the shaft, stretching every movement into something grotesque. Your breath fogs briefly with each exhale, mingling with mold and sweat until you can't distinguish where your body ends and the tunnel begins. You smell like mud, taste copper, feel grit between your teeth despite no meals underground. Sweat soaks through your uniform while clinging to back, thighs, elbow creases. Blisters form beneath leather gloves. When you finally peel them off, your palms resemble drowned flesh, pale, wrinkled, foreign. Doyle grunts approval when you dry them on your trousers and resume shoveling. A rhythm emerges. Dig, pause, listen, shift sacks, check supports, repeat. Time dissolves. No clocks, no light changes, just dripping water and timber groans. You imagine the entire tunnel as a lung expanding around you, waiting to exhale and crush you flat. After hours, Doyle breaks silence by offering a dented flask. Expecting water, you gag on harsh gin, warm and cheap. You return it wordlessly. He nods once before stowing it. Then back to digging. Occasionally the walls shift. Not visibly, but you feel it, a tremor through the clay. Doyle presses his palm flat and listens. You mimic him. Sometimes it's just settling. Other times he spends 10 minutes reinforcing a patch no larger than your chest. It's the closest thing to prayer you've witnessed down here. When the shift ends, though no one declares it, you both begin the agonizing crawl back. Knees protesting, spine feeling permanently twisted to fit the shaft's contours. The tool bag drags like an anchor. No turning around. The tunnel won't allow it. So you backtrack like a dog escaping a collapsed barn. Emerging into the trench leaves you blinking and nauseous. The air feels sharp, almost hostile. It's raining again, or perhaps never stopped. Mud reaches your ankles in places, duckboards floating if stepped on wrong. You pass a soldier vomiting quietly into a latrine hole, another smoking a damp cigarette while rain soaks his greatcoat. No eye contact. No welcome back. The dugout welcomes you through instinct alone. Hands numb, eyelids itching. You peel off your coat in darkness and hang it on a nail already bent under other men's gear. Your bunk, a board over crates, smells of mildew, tobacco, and skin. You lie down carefully, as if the motion might wake something buried inside you. The silence here differs from the tunnels, not tense with listening, but heavy with indifference. You stare at wooden beams overhead, trying to recall how standing upright felt. Legs throb, arms feel detached, jaw aches from clenching. Sleep should come, your body screams for it, but your mind won't shut off. It hums like an overtaxed lamp, flickering at the edges. When sleep finally takes you, it's not rest, just a sweaty, leaden stillness. You dream of crawling, of walls that breathe, of darkness whispering. You wake gasping, unsure where you are, needing a full minute to remember you're above ground. Maybe. 3 days later, they assign you to a listening post, though no one calls it that. The sergeant just grunts and jerks his chin toward a side shaft, muttering, "They need ears." Take your lamp and go with Harper. That's the entirety of your briefing. Harper waits at the tunnel mouth, arms crossed, face unreadable beneath layers of grime and stubble. He doesn't greet you, just turns and starts crawling. You follow because that's what you do here. No explanations, no protests. Men break or they don't. No one asks which you'll be. The shaft is tighter than usual, barely scraped wide enough for one man to lie flat. Not meant for digging forward, just for listening. Harper moves like a creature born underground, dragging a coil of wire behind him. You carry the gear, a shallow metal dish shaped like an ear trumpet, a pair of headphones, and a stub of chalk to mark what matters. When he finally stops, it's in a chamber barely long enough for two of you to lie side by side, chests pressed to the floor, cheeks against cold clay. Harper plants the dish against the wall and hands you the headphones. Quiet now, he whispers, as if the earth itself might overhear. At first, you hear nothing. Not silence, exactly, just the absence of anything human. A low hum of distant artillery, the squelch of water shifting in unseen crevices. No voices, no picks, no boots. Just the slow, indifferent breath of the earth. Harper shifts beside you, fingers twitching against the clay as if trying to feel vibrations before they become sound. They're close on this side. He murmurs, barely audible. Been scratching for days. Sergeant wants to know if they've moved. You nod, though he can't see it, and keep listening. Time warps in a listening post. You don't sleep. You don't speak. You hardly blink. Every sound magnifies. The creak of your boot leather, the rattle of your own breath, the thump of your pulse loud enough to drown thought. You press your ribs into the floor to muffle the rise and fall of your chest. It doesn't help. The more you focus on silence, the louder your body becomes. Then, something shifts in the clay. A faint tap, like metal nudging stone. You freeze. Harper does too. It comes again. Pause. Then again, sharper this time. Methodical. Measured. That's them, Harper breathes. They're probing. Seeing if we're here. You mark the wall, 2 short lines, and reach for the signal wire. The message goes back. Suspected enemy dig detected at listening post 4B. It's the most useful thing you've done all week. For the next hour, you lie motionless, listening to the intermittent tapping. Tap, tap, pause, scrape, pause. The same rhythm, over and over. You realize they're using hand tools, just like yours. Somewhere, maybe 15 feet away, a German sapper is doing exactly what you're doing. If you hear him, he might hear you. The thought knots your stomach. The noise stops abruptly. You and Harper hold your breath. Nothing. The silence swells, thick and suffocating. Then, a rustle. Not movement in the tunnel, but in the earth itself. Harper's jaw tightens. They're digging fast now. Might be laying charges. Your fingers curl around the chalk. The blood drains from your hands. Harper doesn't seem afraid, just resigned. If they break through, he says, we crawl fast or we don't crawl at all. You don't answer. You don't trust your voice. Another sound, sharper. A knock that vibrates through your teeth. Then, was that breathing? You almost convince yourself it's nothing. But Harper lifts a finger. Don't panic, he says. They're just listening, same as us. You stare at the wall. You imagine a German face pressed to the other side, ear cocked, listening for the rustle of your sleeve, the hitch of your breath. You wonder if he's young, if he smokes, if he's thinking the same thing about you. A bead of sweat slides down your cheek and vanishes into the clay. The noise stops again. Harper exhales and sits back, stretching his neck until it pops. That's enough, he says, voice dry. We've marked it. If they're close enough to hear, they're close enough to kill. You peel off the headphones, your ears ringing in the sudden absence of pressure. The world feels too loud, even though no one's spoken above a whisper. As you crawl out, Harper lights a cigarette, careful to cup the flame. The smoke curls against the ceiling and vanishes. You'll dream of it, he says. The tapping happens to all of us. You'll be in your bunk and it'll start again in your skull. Tap, tap, then nothing. You glance back at the wall, half expecting it to move. He exhales, shrugging. Wasn't Roots, by the way. That noise earlier? That was a boot. The collapse doesn't begin with a roar. It starts with a whisper. You're crawling backward through the shaft, a sack of spoils strapped across your shoulders. When you feel it, a tremor in the clay, subtle but wrong. Not the usual groan of timber, not the slow flex of wet earth settling. This is deeper, heavier. It moves through your spine like a second heartbeat. Then the ceiling exhales, a long, low creak, like something ancient bending the wrong way. You freeze. So does the man ahead of you. Doyle's silhouette goes rigid, his arm half raised in warning. His eyes flick upward, then down. Without a word, he yanks the lamp from its hook and hurls it back toward the junction. Move. You don't need telling twice. There's no grace to it. The tunnel forces you into a frantic, elbow-and-knees scramble, dragging the sack with one arm while the other fights for purchase on slick boards. Behind you, the shuddering grows louder, unmistakable now. Something is giving way. The earth is taking itself back. The first timber snaps with a sound like breaking ribs. Then another. Then three more in quick succession. You glance back. Mistake. A cloud of dust erupts from the darkness, swallowing the lamplight. You choke, stumble, keep moving. Your helmet scrapes the ceiling as you duck lower. Every inch is harder than the last. You try not to think about how far you are from the surface. Then the tunnel behind you disappears. You don't see it go. You feel it. A rush of wind, then suction, then impact. Something slams into your legs. Your boots are yanked backward as the floor buckles beneath you. You lurch forward, clawing for the wall, but there's nothing solid left to grip. The world tilts. Clay fills your mouth before you can scream. You hit the wall hard, shoulder first. You think you hear it pop. Then you're sliding, tumbling through the black, arms flailing in a space that suddenly has no floor. The sound is the worst part. Dull, muffled, endless. Not like rockfall in the mines. This is wet earth. It doesn't clatter. It swallows. One moment you're underground. The next, you're inside the ground. You land twisted, chest down, head turned sideways against something unyielding. Your right arm is pinned. You try to move it. Can't. The pressure across your back is immense, like a slab has been laid directly on your ribs. You can breathe, but only barely. Thin, wet gasps through a mouthful of dust and blood. The air tastes like iron and decay. Pitch black. The lamp is gone. The noise is gone. Even your own breath is barely audible beneath the weight pressing down. You try to call out. Your voice doesn't carry. You start to panic. Your body wants to thrash, to claw upward, to dig, but there's nowhere to go. The silence is unbearable. You listen for movement. Shovels. Voices. Anything. Nothing. Just the slow shift of settling earth, locking you in. You think of the diagrams they showed you during training. How much air a man might have in a void the size of a coffin. At the time, it seemed theoretical. Now it's your only arithmetic. You can't feel your legs at first. Then the pain comes, sharp in the knee, deep in the thigh where something heavy has pinned it sideways. You try to shift your hips and nearly black out. The pain is dizzying. You vomit bile into the clay. It soaks in immediately, like the earth is drinking you. Time dissolves. You might be there 5 minutes or 50. It stretches, breaks, reforms. Your mind starts to slip. You think of home, not clearly, just fragments. A kettle whistling, a shovel by the door, the sound of coal pouring into the stove. You cling to those things to stay awake, but they drift away like smoke. Then thumps. Not the enemy, not the tunnel still collapsing. These are deliberate, controlled. You hold your breath. Listen harder. Again. A spade. Close. You bang your head against the beam near your temple. Once, twice. A signal. A response. 3 sharp knocks. You don't realize you're crying until the tears cut tracks through the dirt on your face. Minutes later, light pierces the dark, a sliver at first, then the glint of a pick chipping away above you. It stings your eyes. You squint up as a shape leans over you. Doyle. His face is streaked with dirt and blood. He doesn't smile, doesn't speak, just starts pulling clay away from your shoulders, handful by handful. It takes 2 more men and 20 minutes to free your chest. Another 10 for your legs. You don't feel the moment they lift you. Just the rush of air as the pressure releases and your lungs expand past panic. You cough violently, dirt spewing from your throat like you've been swallowing the tunnel itself. They drag you out through a fresh cut in the shaft wall. The surface feels farther than it should be. Your vision blurs. You smell cordite, sweat, something coppery. When they lay you on the trench boards, you blink up at the gray sky and realize it's still raining. Of course it is. There's blood on your boots. A lot of it. You don't know whose. Doyle's voice reaches you, muffled through the ringing in your ears. We lost Green. Shaft gave way right over his head. Someone mutters a curse. Another says, nothing to be done. They move on. The work doesn't stop. You lie there, cold seeping into your bones, trying to process that you're alive. Sort of. Your shoulder throbs. Your leg might be broken. Your mouth is full of grit, and someone else's screams still echo in your skull. But you're breathing. The tunnel doesn't care. It never did. They assign you to the low tunnel the day after the collapse. No explanation, no sympathy, just your name on a slate and a curt nod from the quartermaster. Your leg, not broken after all, still aches when you put weight on it. Your shoulder sits wrong, like a door slightly off its hinges. But they tell you it's time to pull your weight again. Flanagan jerks his thumb toward the sunk shaft. Bring extra socks. If you've got any skin left by the end of it, you'll be lucky. This tunnel runs near the water table, so close you can feel the moisture in the air before you even crawl inside. The earth here is different, slick, sour, almost alive in ways that unsettle you. Every step sinks slightly. The boards groan like old men. The walls aren't proper clay anymore. There's something softer, more pliable, slumping if you lean too hard. The timbers rot from within, blackened by mildew that weeps when touched. You wear gloves, but the dampness seeps through anyway. The stench is worse than usual. You've grown accustomed to mold and sweat, the metallic tang of old blood and bad breath. But this is different. Heavier, rancid with decay and something chemical. You try breathing through your mouth, but the taste is worse. Sulfur, sewage, and that unmistakable sweetness of something that used to be alive. Your shift consists of hauling buckets of silt through the narrow shaft, hunched double, knees soaked, spine twisted into knots. The water isn't clear. It's brownish gray, like liquid wrung from a soiled bandage. It doesn't pour. It oozes, creeping along the floorboards, soaking into your socks no matter how tightly you've bound the seams. Within an hour, your feet are pulpy. Within 2, the skin starts peeling. The rats here are bolder. You'd stop noticing them above ground, but down here they move in packs, slick with filth, their eyes dull and wet. One dies beside you mid-shift, just drops, twitches, goes still. You nudge it with your shovel. The others descend before you can blink. You don't watch. At one point, your pick strikes something soft. Not earth, not stone, something that yields. You freeze. The lamplight flickers. Doyle isn't with you today. It's Turner, a quieter man with a cough like tearing cloth. He sees your expression and sighs. Keep going. If it's a body, best let it lie. You scrape gently until the shape reveals itself. A sleeve, Buttons, half a job on. French uniform, half a decade old, maybe more. You leave it untouched. By the next shift, the rats will have done the rest. The deeper you go, the worse it gets. Pockets of gas form in the flooded chambers, silent killers you can't see. Sometimes methane, sometimes worse. The corporal explains that if your lamp flares and dies, you're to crawl out without breathing and pray it hasn't already filled your lungs. That's the full training. No mask, no procedure, just prayer and retreat. It happens twice that week. One man makes it, one doesn't. They never find his lamp. The tunnel walls begin to close in, not literally, but in your head. The air thickens, your breath fogs and hangs like a curtain. You start seeing movement at the edge of your vision, shapes just beyond the light, faces in the walls. At first, you blame fatigue, foul air, nerves. Then Turner asks if you saw the hands. You don't answer because you did, or thought you did, and it's better not to speak of such things aloud. Your boots disintegrate by day 4. The leather splits. The soles separate in layers like wet cardboard. You try wrapping your feet in cloth, then oilskin, then spare sandbags. Nothing works. The rot gets in. Your toes go pale, then red, then begin to blister. Flanagan calls it trench foot, though down here, the term feels laughably inadequate. It's not just the trench. It's the water, the weight, the constant pressure. Your skin is forgetting how to be skin. One morning, you wake to find your toenail has come off in your sock. No pain, just a slick smear and the faint smell of infection. You wash your foot with iodine, grit your teeth, and wrap it again. The medic shrugs when he sees it. Still walking? Let us know when you can't. For 3 days, you dig beside the same half-buried corpse. No one moves it. It's in the way, but not badly enough to justify the effort. Its arm lies just beneath the boards, preserved by cold mud, fingers curled around nothing. You brush it once while shifting position. It's firm, still wearing a glove. The filth becomes biblical. Maggots bubble up from standing puddles. Flies materialize from nowhere. The walls sweat something black. You stop trying to identify it. On your final day in that tunnel, the roof weeps steadily. The timbers groan like a tired animal. You work in silence. No one speaks anymore. Turner coughs blood into a rag and keeps digging. You don't ask if he's all right. You already know. Then the air turns sharp, ammonia and bile. You gag, stumble back. Gas pocket. Not explosive, just vile. It clings to your clothes, your teeth, your tongue. You try breathing through your sleeve and end up inhaling whatever lives in the fabric. Mold, rot, something that might have been meat once. You start crawling, not orderly, not calm, just a blind scramble toward light, toward air, toward anything that isn't this tunnel. Turner shouts something behind you, but you don't catch it. You're already halfway up the slope when your eyes start burning. You emerge on hands and knees, gasping. The trench is slick with rain. You try to stand, collapse forward, and vomit into the mud. It comes in sour waves. You heave until your ribs cramp. No one helps you up. When you wipe your mouth, your sleeve smells like the tunnel. Everything smells like the tunnel now. They hand you the charge mid-afternoon with all the ceremony of passing a bread loaf. Wire it careful like, the corporal says, not out of concern for safety, but because the last man did it wrong and took 3 others with him. He says it like he's reporting spoiled rations, just inventory loss. You take the coil of detonation wire like any other tool, though your fingers are still raw from yesterday's waterlogged shift. They tell you it's a camouflage, not meant to kill directly, just collapse a tunnel. A precaution, nothing personal, just dirt management. The marked tunnel is narrow and damp, freshly carved, walls still slick with wet clay and not yet timbered. Intelligence isn't certain. It never is, but better safe than overrun. Someone mutters this last part. Might have been Doyle. Might have been Harper. Hard to tell in the gloom. You go down with a 2-man team, Vickers and Brand. Both sappers, both quiet. Vickers looks too young to shave. Brand looks too old to still be here. Neither speaks much. The 3 of you crawl past 2 support chambers into a shaft so tight you have to turn sideways to breathe. The air smells of charred cloth and damp rope. Somewhere behind you, the earth shifts. You try not to notice. The charge itself is modest. 2 sandbags of explosives tamped into a notch at the shaft's base. You wedge them in place, press the firing cap into the center. Your hands shake only slightly. You've done this before, but never when the soil felt this loose, the air this charged. Vickers unwinds the wire as you backtrack, laying it along the floorboards like a fuse. You keep glancing back, half expecting the explosives to detonate from being looked at wrong. Brand handles the final connections. He wipes his nose on his sleeve and mutters something. You don't ask if it's prayer or a curse. The plan is simple. Light the fuse, clear the shaft, detonate. When command confirms no friendlies are near, you're to return and await orders. Vickers and Brand stay behind to finish bracing supports. Standard procedure, they say, though it seems pointless for a shaft about to be intentionally collapsed. You crawl back alone. The silence feels heavier now, like the tunnel's already decided to bury itself and is just waiting for permission. At the junction, you unclip your lamp and emerge into the trench. The sky hangs low and gray. The wind carries grit. Flanagan waves you to the signal box. Ready? He asks, not looking up from his notes. You nod. He checks his watch, marks the time, hands you the detonator. It clicks when you press it, a dry snap like breaking a twig. For a moment, nothing happens. Then the ground inhales. Not a bang. Not yet. First comes pressure, pure and invisible. The trench boards vibrate under your boots. The earth draws in its breath. Then the explosion hits, not with a flash, but with a tearing roar so deep you feel it in your molars. The ground lifts slightly, like the world itself is shrugging. Then it slams back down with a sound like thunder smothered in wet blankets. You stagger. Your ears ring. Dirt rains from the trench walls. Somewhere nearby, someone laughs nervously. You don't. You just wait. 10 minutes later, they send you back to inspect. You don't find the shaft. You find a crater. The support chamber is gone. No trace of timbers. No tools. No men. Just a gaping mouth of churned mud and shattered rock where the floor used to be. The bracing beams have splintered like matchsticks. The charge worked. Too well, maybe. Must have triggered an unmapped void beneath. You look for anything. A boot, a sleeve, a glove. Nothing. You call out once. Twice. The tunnel swallows your voice. No smoke. No fire. Just steam rising from cracked clay and the faint stench of scorched wool. You shine your lamp in every direction, but there's nowhere for the light to land. The crater isn't even a clean hole. It's ragged, like a wound that can't be stitched. You crouch at the edge, unsure what to feel. Then stand. Turn. Crawl out. Back in the trench, Flanagan asks what you saw. Nothing, you say? He nods. That's the report. The men aren't listed as dead. Not yet. Without bodies, they're just missing. The paperwork will take weeks. By then, 2 new sappers will have replaced them. You're handed a shovel and told to reinforce the next shaft. No one asks if you knew them well. No one says their names again. The hole is marked with a chalk X. Nothing more. That night, you lie in your bunk with your boots still on. You've stopped bothering to untie them. They're too caked in dried clay to remove easily, and your toes are too blistered to bother. The soles peel at the edges like dead skin. You think about asking for new ones. Then remember Vickers never got his. He's somewhere under that collapsed shaft now, so you don't complain. You picture the last thing Vickers might have seen, the fuse tip glowing, the pocket of air collapsing, your lamplight just around the bend, too far to matter. Your hands still smell like the detonator. Not the explosives, those are long gone, but the coppery stink of wire and sweat, of fear soaked into canvas. You scrub your nails with a bristle brush and brown water, but the dirt won't come out. It's under the skin now. You press your fingers into your palms and feel it there, grit lodged in the cracks. You're not sure it will ever leave. Sleep should come easy. Your body screams for it. Every muscle feels leaden, eyelids drooping against your will. But your mind won't shut off. It hums like a lamp left burning too long, hot, trembling, slightly off. You lie flat on the bunk, staring at worm-eaten beams overhead, waiting for oblivion that never arrives. The darkness around you isn't peaceful. It's pressure. You feel the weight of the tunnel even when you're not in it. clay pressing against your thoughts, timber braces groaning in your skull. Around you, the dugout breathes with other men stacked like cordwood. Wet, uneven wheezing from the bunk above. Someone coughing every few minutes like clockwork. Another muttering nonsense in his sleep, words starting and stopping like a broken record. One man snores like he's drowning. You try not to listen, but there's nothing else to hear. The silence between sounds is too sharp. The human noise is too grim. When you do drift off, it's not sleep, it's falling. You dream of tunnels that twist back into themselves, of shafts opening into mouths, of boots sinking deeper with every step until your legs disappear. You wake gasping 3 times before dawn. Once with your jaw clenched so tight your teeth ache. Once with fists knotted around a belt strap. Once because you swore someone whispered your name from the dugout's darkest corner. You sit up, heart hammering, and stare into the blackness. Nothing moves. No one else stirs. By the 3rd sleepless night, your thoughts stop lining up properly. You forget the name of a man you've worked beside for weeks. Walk into a dugout and can't remember why. Pack your kit twice for the same shift and leave without it anyway. Flanagan doesn't comment, just points you toward the shaft and says, "Try not to fall asleep down there." You laugh. It comes out too loud. No one joins in. You start hearing things. Not voices. Not yet. Just the creak of timbers that haven't moved. The drip of water where no leak exists. You stop mid-shovel, certain you heard boots scraping behind you, the jingle of a tool belt. But when you turn, nothing. Just shadows stretching in lamplight. The tunnel is still. The air isn't. It hums. Other men hear things too. They won't admit it, but you see it in their eyes. Doyle's hands tremble when he tightens his belt. Turner whispers to himself between shovel strokes. Harper keeps glancing at the walls like he expects them to breathe. No one mentions it. No one wants to be the first to say the tunnel's getting to them. But it is. Sims cracks first, a sapper from Glasgow. No warning. No injury. Just drops his tools one shift, presses himself flat against the wall, and starts sobbing. Not screaming. Not shouting. Just quiet. Endless sobbing like something deep inside him fractured beyond repair. Doyle has to carry him out by the belt loops. When they drag him into daylight, his fingers are locked into fists, nails dug so deep into his palms they've drawn blood. Next morning, his bunk holds a man named Carter. No one says Sim's name again. You begin to dread sleep. Not just the dreams, but the vulnerability of it. Every time you close your eyes, it takes longer to come back. You wake with dirt in your mouth, arms twisted beneath you like you were trying to tunnel through the floorboards. Once, you wake on the ground beside your bunk, cheek pressed into cold mud. You don't remember falling. No one saw. You test your limits one rest shift, stay awake through the night, pacing trenches until your legs give out, then counting rats on overturned crates. You reach 32 before your vision blurs, and they start looking like men. One stops, stares at you too long. You blink. It's gone. That night, you sleep harder than ever and wake to find you've wet yourself. You clean up before anyone notices. Or maybe they notice and say nothing. The silence is the same either way. When your next shift comes, you're already awake. You realize you never really stopped being awake. You pack your kit with trembling fingers, lace boots with mechanical precision, step into the shaft before Flanagan can say your name. Doyle nods at you underground. Doesn't speak, but his eyes linger a second longer than usual. You take position and feel your heartbeat echo off the walls. Too loud, too fast. You wonder if the enemy can hear it. Wonder if the dirt can. Wonder if you'll hear it stop when the ceiling finally gives way. By the time you lift your shovel, your palms are already sweating. Not from heat, not from labor, from anticipation. One morning, Hughes doesn't come back from the night shift. No announcement, no commotion, just an empty bunk in the corner, his damp lamp still hanging on its hook. You notice it when returning from patrol, your knees aching, fingers numb from the cold. You sit to unlace your boots and glance over to nod at him out of habit. The space stares back. At first, you think he might be on latrine duty or catching rest in a side tunnel. But as hours pass and his gear remains untouched, the truth settles. Not dramatically, but quietly. like watching smoke fade from a spent match. Flanagan doesn't mention it. Neither does Doyle. They just shift assignments on the board, wipe away his initials with a thumb, and move the next man up. You ask Turner if he's heard anything. He shrugs. Guess he got caught in a bad patch. Thought he was on C-section last night. That's all he offers. You nod like it means something. It doesn't. Hughes wasn't even 25. You'd split your last cigarette with him 2 days ago, watched him tuck it behind his ear like a badge of luck. He'd joked about not having a proper smoke since Eris. You don't ask again. By noon, someone stripped his blanket from the bunk. It's folded and reissued to a replacement who arrived 3 days ago. A man still learning not to step in standing water. You catch yourself watching as he laces Hughes' boots, now his boots, and something twists behind your ribs. Not anger, not grief, just static. You tell yourself it's better this way. Better not to ask. Better not to dwell. That's how the others cope. Doyle still won't say Connor's name. Harper acts like he never knew half the men he works beside. Turner doesn't make eye contact anymore. Everyone is half present, half buried already. That's the trick, you think. Pretend they weren't real to begin with, and it doesn't hurt when they vanish. But you fail. Hughes' voice comes back in flashes, muttering about home, humming off key when he thought no one heard, coughing like he'd swallowed mud. You hear him in the silence where his breathing should be, and that's worse than any scream. The days blur. Routine work mostly. Reinforcements arrive. The weather turns. A few shafts collapse. Nothing unusual. Nothing worth remembering. Then one morning, you don't report back. There's no alarm. No urgent search. The shift change is chaotic anyway. Flanagan assumes you're already below. Doyle thinks he saw you going ahead. Harper shrugs. Probably transferred. You've missed roll call before. Men lose track of time down here. By evening, your bunk remains empty. Your lamp hangs cold on its hook. Your boots are gone. That's the first thing someone notices. Not your absence. Just the gap beneath the cot where leather soles used to rest, still caked with blue clay from the Spanbro-Ekmelin shaft. They check the latrines, the outer trenches, the aid station. Nothing. No one saw you go. No one remembers seeing you come back. No blast was reported. No scream. No trail of blood. You are not beneath a collapsed tunnel. You are not in the medical ledger. You are simply missing. Flanagan is told next morning. He doesn't say much, just glances at your bunk, grunts, and makes a mark on his clipboard. No patrol is sent. No search. Just quiet acknowledgement that one more man has fallen out of line. It happens, especially to tunnelers. You're close to the ground already. One wrong turn, one bad moment, and the earth swallows you whole. Sometimes they turn up 3 shifts later, filthy and disoriented, crawling from a shaft no one remembered was still in use. Other times, they don't. After 3 days, you're assumed not to be returning. Your things are divided. The coat goes to a recruit from Leicester who lost his in a mess tent fire. Doyle takes your razor, snapping off the bent teeth while muttering about repairs. The spare tobacco disappears. Socks are claimed without a word. Your lamp is cleaned, re-oiled, clipped to the belt of a man who never knew your name. No one writes home. No one files an inquiry. Someone updates the assignment board. Your name is smudged out with a charcoal thumb. A replacement is penciled in below. The ledger at headquarters takes longer to catch up. You'll be absent for 2 weeks. Then unaccounted for. If no paperwork contradicts it, they'll eventually mark you presumed dead. No ceremony. No service. Just a new column on a spreadsheet and a footnote that your body was never recovered. That's not unusual either. You are not buried. You are not commemorated. There is no grave. If someone tries to track you, an overworked sergeant, an officer with a flicker of guilt, they'll find your name on a duty roster from 3 weeks ago. Nothing after. No confirmed sighting. No closure. The war is full of blanks. They will close the file. Back at the front, your bunk is filled by a man named Ellis. He ties his boots differently, snores louder, complains more, but he fits in quickly. He digs well, stays quiet, doesn't ask about the man who slept here before him. No one tells him, not because it's a secret, just because it doesn't matter. There are other tunnels to dig, other charges to lay. The front moves forward inch by inch, and every inch demands another body. Whether yours is under the mud or lost somewhere beyond, it doesn't change the tally. You're not mourned. You're replaced. And the work continues.